Hello, everyone, and welcome to MarketScale Live. Today, I'm your host, Tim Maitland, and thank you so much for tuning in. So glad that everybody's here to just sit back and learn and build a community here around our broadcast today. You know, no matter where you look, no matter what's happening in the world, a pandemic, a world war, an economic crisis, an election, you name it, there's really only one thing that is undefeated throughout the span of time, and that's education. I mean, think about it. All the way back to the Renaissance days to now, education has been a consistent in our lives, and it's something that we leave for the generations behind us so they can continue to get better, continue to be more talented, and continue to grow the next generation. And in B2B, there's really a revolution going on right now, and it's not because of COVID, it's because of the digital transformation that has taken place. Companies are sprinting towards building media channels, and online learning channels are at the forefront of what they're sprinting to. So today, to talk about where online learning is headed and how companies can adopt it in a more scalable way, we have the founder and CEO of NorthPass, Stephen Cornwell, and he's going to share some of his thought leadership. So he doesn't need an introduction, but let's give him one anyways. Everybody, I'd like to introduce you to Stephen Cornwell. Good morning, Steve. Thanks for joining us today. How are you today?
Hey, Tim. It's really good to be here. I'm doing great. Got another win for my Hoosiers, and it's a huge launch day over at NorthPass, so we're pumped up. And thanks for having me. This is great to be here.
You're pumped up. The Hoosiers are top 10, and you're no longer a basketball school. You're a football school. So
nope.
I guess welcome to the big leagues, if that's appropriate to say.
much to my wife, who went to Penn State, her very disappointed. So we have a little bit of a rivalry going in the house these days.
I would imagine, especially with their slow start. But well, Steve, we're so glad to have you on. We're excited to really have you broadcast your thought leadership. Obviously, the world of education is constantly evolving, and online learning, e-learning is really leading the way. So before we dive in and talk about how online learning is really disrupting higher education and allowing companies to really expand how they communicate, I'd love to just start. You've started a great, amazing company, NorthPass. What was kind of the idea of starting that business, and how has learning and education played a huge role in your entire life up to this point?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. So when prior to NorthPass, I was running another tech company. It was a retail data analytics organization, and we were scaling quite fast. And we had reached a point where we had hundreds of customers, hundreds of partners, actually. And it just became very, very important for us to train these stakeholders, these customers, these partners, in a much more scalable way than we had been doing in kind of our early scrappy days. And it was quite a challenge. We looked around, we looked at ways we could do that. And what we found was we either had to kind of build it ourselves, or we could buy a more HR or compliance oriented learning management system and kind of shoehorn it into our customer training and our partner enablement programs. And so neither of those options were great. The systems at the time were fantastic for what they were, but we had a really different need. And so we ended up not doing anything. And shortly thereafter, we did get acquired. And the company who bought us was one of the biggest SaaS companies in the world. They had significantly greater scale than us. And they had also a significantly greater problem in that training area. And so I said, okay, wasn't just me and my crazy little startup where we saw this problem. It's actually in a big established company. And that was a big moment for me to say, hey, look, why can't there be a solution that allows enterprises to deliver these large, high scale educational programs out to these audiences that are external to their business? And so that was kind of the founding moment for me. And so I resigned from my duties there after fulfilling that and seeing that acquisition through, and set off to found NorthPass.
That's fantastic. And, if you look at right now, 2020 is definitely the year of disruption. And for too long, I think a lot of people have shared the narrative, especially on the corporate side, that training, education, it's been too long, it's been too slow, it's been too boring. So how have you seen online learning in a good way disrupt the traditional corporate classroom? And what data shows that having that online learning experience actually enhances the quality of learning for the students of any kind?
Sure. Yeah, I think that there's so much happening in our space right now. And one of the really, really interesting things that I've witnessed over the past 5, 6 years being in this business is the learning space has tended to kind of lag the marketing space. And one of the really interesting things that we're seeing now is some of the online learning technologies catching up and kind of adopting some of the tools that have been present in marketing technology for a decade now. Features and functionality around personalization, right? Making learning highly, highly personalized at a big scale. Just like marketers have figured out a way to personalize messaging, personalized websites, personalized email, personalized ads. Well, now that capability is becoming present in the learning world as well. And so what that does is, just as in marketing, a more personalized ad drives up clicks, drives up engagement. In the learning world, that also drives up engagement. That drives up the ability for the interest in the learners to consume that content. It's just, they want to consume it more when it's more personalized to them. They get into it and they stay more engaged. So that's that's a big change that we've seen be quite disruptive in the space. Another big one that we're seeing, which is being borrowed from the marketing stack, is more around automation. And so just like marketers have been able to reach tens of thousands, millions of people with highly automated messaging or communications based on certain events or certain characteristics of an individual, we're seeing that now in learning, where the delivery of learning can be highly, highly contextualized to what that person might need. And so you take, for an example, you take maybe a driver of a on-demand app company, and maybe they get a bad star rating because their car was dirty, right? That data point can instantly trigger an online learning course for them to learn the best practices of cleanliness and the importance of that, and what it means to their own earnings, and what it means to the customer service and the brand that they're representing. And that personalization and that automated delivery of that will allow them to get in there, understand why they're going through it, and get out, and then have a really, really positive behavioral change that can really impact their personal bottom line and also the growth of the company. So I think personalization, automation are really, really big disruptive changes that we're seeing in online learning really come to the forefront recently.
It definitely is. I couldn't agree more, especially with the automation point. And, when you think about online learning at a company level, what's nice about it is it's owned by the company, right? We no longer live in a world where, it's just a training department or HR department that has to worry about education or invest into education. It's something that everybody in the company can do. And to your point about marketers kind of comparing, tools and data they've used, you're now able to bring that to the classroom. Something that we've seen is that education is now the highest form of marketing. Mm-hmm. And something that a marketer can do to truly enhance their brand and own their channels and own their exposure is to really invest in the idea of educating the industries they're selling into. It's the thought of, hey, we're a company, we have these amazing products, but how much more likely are we to command a premium with our products if we're also a brand that teaches around industry trends, teaches around industry innovation? So to speak a little bit towards marketers too, because they love tools, they love data, and online learning is a new way for them to be able to communicate. How have you seen marketers evolve in using online learning to help their sales team and help grow the business?
Sure. So we kind of think that what we see in our customer base is there are kind of generally like two tracks that people will build in their learning program. One is more of a technical training, right? How to use the product, how to use the service, whether that's install it or maintain it or just get the most value from it. So that's one track. And it's fairly tactical. It helps that individual do a better job and really thrive in their work. The next track that we see is training around what I would call maybe the method or the philosophy or the bigger idea behind the business. And so like when I got the idea to start NorthPass, we had a product. It was a data analytics product. So we needed to train on how to use that. But we also had a methodology, and that methodology was actually teaching manufacturing companies how to think about not their manufacturing data, but the retail data about their consumer. So it was just a big overhaul in the thought process around how these manufacturers could think closer to their consumer, closer to the end point of distribution. It had nothing to do with our product. It was all to do with this new methodology that we were pushing into the market. And we see that today by some of the best marketers. We see, for example, look at HubSpot Academy, right? Not only does HubSpot Academy teach you how to use their software platform and their many different products, but they also teach you how to be a great marketer or a great salesperson or a great customer service agent. And all of that content is really is entirely decoupled from their product offering. And that allows them to become even more of a thought leader, become even more of a go-to source for the salesperson, the marketer, the customer service representative who's really looking to take steps in their career. So we see that over and over and over again in our customer base, and I think it's really, really exciting. You know, I mentioned the driver before, right, and their star rating. Well, if you just look in that space, you have in the on-demand space, sure, there's training on how to use those apps, you know, and how to use those mobile services, but there's also training on how to be the best driver, how to be the best technician, how to be the best realtor. And that is really where we see marketers embracing learning and impacting the business by kind of bigger philosophical movements that really, really impact the business.
No, Steve, you know, you're exactly right. And it's because people trust brands who teach them things. You know, we used to live in a world where the seller had all the power, because if their customer wanted to have any sort of information, whether it was product related, industry related, whatever it was, they had to pick up the phone, have a conversation with that sales rep, and really trust that that relationship was giving them everything that they needed to learn about whatever their question was. Now, due to information, obviously the buyer has all the power. So when a brand can say, just like HubSpot, you know what, we're going to create an online learning experience that doesn't need to just be around our product suite, but also guides and helps marketers be the best in all of these other areas that have nothing really to do with us, they're going to trust us. They're going to refer us. They're going to become fans of us. And it really is, you know, one of the best plays that a company can do to obviously expand their reach in new markets. But, you know, what we're looking at right now too, Steve, is, you know, 2020 being the year of disruption, you're looking at company culture being totally disrupted. You know, pre-COVID, obviously companies had presidents clubs for their top sales teams. They had softball tournaments. They had company picnics, whatever it might be. And now with everybody being remote, that just doesn't exist. And I'm a firm believer that one of the best things a company can do to invest into company culture, especially in this time, is invest in the education and the training of their own employees to make sure that they feel that, you know, they're getting everything they need from their employer. So how have you seen companies adopting, you know, online learning internally more than ever to boost company culture in this time and beyond?
Sure. Yeah, I think that the global pandemic that we're in right now has really just accelerated the use of online learning for workplaces, right? We've talked a lot about online learning for marketers, but you know, the origins are really like in the workplace. And I think this pandemic has really accelerated the adoption in the workplace. So, you know, I can speak about this in a couple different ways. One way is just very close to home, which is how we use it at our company. So we're not a huge company. We're still a pretty small but growing organization. And pre-pandemic, we would do a lot of our onboarding through in person because there's just not that many people. But post, you know, once the pandemic hit, we have to move that online. And so we've really adopted our own product and are using our own product to onboard all of our the people who are signing up and joining our team. And so what we've done is we've taken overviews of our company, we've taken our mission, we've taken our vision, we've taken the kind of the broader message from me. We've put all of that in video, we've put that in online assessment form. And then what we've also done is for each other departmental leader, we've done the same thing. We've captured who they are, what their team is all about, what their kind of baseline expectations are, and how they're going to help this new employee be successful in their new role. And we've put all of that in a series of lessons and learning paths and assessments. And so now every month when new people are joining our company, they're automatically receiving this educational material, and they're able to get onboarded really quickly, really easily, and kind of at their own pace. And it's done a lot of things. One is it's just a great experience for a new person. Two is it increases the efficiency of our company, because the leaders don't have to be kind of assigned a specific time, a specific day, and consume that time. Now the conversation with the department leads or with me can shift to more of a conversation as opposed to more a formal kind of lecture or educational session. And so now it's very productive because the new employee can learn, and they can be educated on everything we do. They can take notes. And then when we get together, they have a lot of questions, and it can be a really productive dialogue. So I think that's a huge cultural plus. Another thing is using education, I think, as a perk. And everybody wants to continue learning. Everybody wants to continue growing in their career. And there are some amazing course catalogs out there, whether it's Udemy or Coursera or LinkedIn Learning. I mean, the list goes on and on. You can get in really technical stuff with like Pluralsight and all of those. And so I think companies that purchase licenses to those catalogs and allow their employees access to that kind of on an as needed or as interested basis, that's a huge perk for employees. And it makes the employer more marketable. So I think those two things are just some things that are really close to home for us.
And, and what you're saying there, it sounds like is, if I'm looking to move into online learning, I don't have to have this big, detailed out, intimidating course. I can upload, phone calls for, new sales trainees to be able to listen to and just kind of learn from an organic phone call of one of their sales experts have. I think sometimes, companies can get kind of intimidated thinking that they have to do this big time structure and have this big to do of moving their current training online or even adopting training for the first time and they deploy it online. So, what do you say to the company that is close and wants to do it, but they might be a little bit intimidated thinking that it's this huge official launch that's going to be daunting and hard to do?
Yeah, I think that the intimidation factor, right? The idea that this is big and this is complicated, this requires technical expertise and instructional design expertise. I think it's that made sense for a period of time, but technology and services have advanced so rapidly over the past 5 years that no longer is a real issue. Content has become so easy to generate. The systems are incredibly intuitive to deploy learning out to the right people. And so what this has done is it's really made online learning creation available to not just the L&D professionals, not just the instructional designers, but it's really allowed any line of business leader to take it into their own hands and build programs that are going to benefit their people or their stakeholders, whether those are internal or external. So the first thing that I would say is, as a non-e-learning professional, you can absolutely do this. At NorthPress, we're a sub 50 person company. We don't have a dedicated L&D person, but we've created a great suite of online courses and lessons for our team and for our customers. And each department leader and subject matter expert has done that. So what I would first say is, don't be afraid, don't be intimidated. It can be done. It is being done. The second thing I would say is be encouraged as the team leader, as a subject matter expert. You actually have the most important asset in learning creation, and you have the knowledge. You have the expertise. You know the content that needs to be shared and educated on. You know how to assess whether that learner understands that content. So using today's tools, using today's content, using good partners, you will absolutely be able to put together meaningful educational material that really makes an impact. The last piece I would say on that, there are two more pieces actually, is one, start small. It's easy to look at like a HubSpot Academy and go, oh my gosh, there's 25 certificate programs. There's all this badging. There's hundreds of courses in there. There's these beautiful high fidelity videos in there. Yes, that's a great vision to aspire to. But that took a decade to get there, right? And so you can make an impact with one short form 2 to 5 minute course that you can put together just within the matter of a week or two. Start there and get feedback. Make the goal of your starting point to get feedback as fast as you can, right? Don't make it to kind of go in a lab and create this big, huge thing that takes years. Just start small, and within a couple weeks, just set a goal. Get some people in here and get some feedback really fast. And with that feedback, you really, really get the momentum rolling, and then you can create your second course and your third, and maybe your first certificate program, and et cetera, and you will scale from there. And I think the last thing is find good partners, right? As you get some momentum, as you get your first kind of pieces of content together, find some partners to help you take that to the next level. Because there's some excellent organizations out there that can do that.
Yeah, there definitely are, and that's obviously helpful and something that you can do also to increase your scale. And I like your point about baby steps. It reminds me of the movie What About Bob, if you've seen that. Where
Love it.
Bill Murray is, I'm baby stepping into the kitchen, I'm baby stepping up the stairs, and you're right. Just start small. We're so used to consuming content, even just from our iPhones, watching our friends, going to football games or, family Thanksgiving, dinners that are going to be coming up. So it's okay to kind of create your online learning content more in a kind of lower barrier way to start. And like you said, you could scale up. Now, to kind of pivot to, a topic that we all see, daily if we turn on the news, and that's online learning actually disrupting higher education. When you look at, schools, we talked about Penn State and IU at the start. I went to UT. When you look at schools, obviously tuition is insanely high. And, the coursework could be the same at one school as the other. However, the price is totally different. And yes, there's clouts of degrees that can, weigh into that. But a lot of times it's the facility costs that they mention. It's the professor costs that they mention. It's the logistics costs around the university that they mention. How is online learning going to really disrupt higher education in that regard, in regards to tuition? And is it something that universities are truly adopting? Are they excited about AR and VR and learning capabilities that way? Or do you see them really being hesitant because it disrupts really the core of who their identity is right now?
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see how this plays out, right? But these big university systems, they're pricing themselves out, right? Like when I went to school, I went to Indiana. I was out of state, but it was ultimately a state school. And I think when I went there, it wasn't that long ago. I think it was like 17 grand for out of state. Now it's like close to 50 grand. And it hasn't been that long, right? Prices in the broader kind of consumer economy haven't quadrupled,
right,
in the past 15 years. So there's something really out of whack. And I don't really know exactly where the university system is going to take this, but there's clearly a problem. And when you see things like the universities releasing these online programs, but they're the same price or they're more money than the on-campus experience, it's kind of like, well, it just doesn't seem right. So I think the university system has a lot of work to do. I think if they don't figure this out, if they don't bring their cost model into a more reasonable place, then it's going to be a pretty dangerous place for them. And what it's going to do, right, is it's and we're already seeing it. It's causing competitors to rise from other areas. And when you look at just like trades, for example, in a way, why, if you want to be a programmer, if you want to be a developer, why you got to really weigh out the cost benefit now. True. Of doing some great online education through it's been a while since I looked at these, but the code academies, the plural sites, the code schools, there's a lot of these boot camps. We hire people from these boot camps that don't even for building our software. And so you really got to think, if you're a student, do I want to spend a couple $100,000, or maybe I want to spend tens of thousands of dollars? And that's just in the coding world. We're starting to see that in sales, the vocational programs for sales, vocational programs for digital marketing. And so I think it's kind of the vocational schooling is becoming available, not just for maybe the traditional trades, but now for knowledge workers as well. And I think that's extremely encouraging for society. It's also very threatening to the university systems. So I think the universities, they got to figure it out. But in the meantime, hey, hats off to the vocational programs, to the boot camps, to the private education systems that are really offering something of tremendous value.
Yeah, absolutely. It's extremely tremendous. And, hats off to companies like EY and what they're doing. Here's obviously a company that people hold in very high regard. And they're saying, you know what, we're going to launch our own MBA program. And I think a lot of the reasons behind that is they saw that the higher education institutions were sometimes failing these MBA candidates a little bit, because they would come into EY and they wouldn't be proficient in some of the key areas that EY was really looking for in a person of that candidate. And they said, you know what, we're going to launch our own MBA program, and we're going to allow people to get into our ecosystem. And that's obviously naturally going to funnel better talent into, representatives of our company. And then we're going to be able to serve and guide our customers the best way possible. So how do you see companies like EY or IBM, or even, more mid-sized companies really investing into programs like their own MBA or something similar to enhance, education and almost like a business trade, if you will?
Yeah, I think the biggest and best companies in the world, whether it's EY, whether it's Amazon, Microsoft, any of these kind of blue chip companies, I think it's a no-brainer for them, right? Because you have an enormous sector of the population that could really care less about the stereotypical and kind of the Hollywood Animal House lifestyle of campus living, right? There are people that want that, right? But there's a lot of people that don't, and there's a lot of people that just want to kind of get out, earn money, perfect their craft, and just kind of continue to progress really productively in society. And it's a mature person, but I think it's a really big part of society. And I think with companies like EY doing what they're doing, accounting's perfect. It's a craft, right? It's a technical knowledge set. It's a set of rules, a set of processes, a set of methods that can be trained, and you don't necessarily need all of the liberal arts education or all of the kind of gen ed courses in order to become a proficient accountant. And so I think that's just one example of many more to come. And I think it's going to give EY and others a real strategic advantage in their recruiting process and in their brand of their culture.
Well, we really appreciate your thought leadership around all of these topics. And, 2021 we like to say that this is the comeback year, especially in B2B and NorthPass. I know you guys have a lot going on, a lot that you're excited about. So what are some of those things that we can look forward to seeing NorthPass really releasing and growing here in the upcoming year, just a couple months away?
Yeah, sure. I'm so excited about what we're doing and the roadmap that we have in front of us. We've recently launched an all-new methodology that is helping organizations bring their stakeholders together with their executives and really create more business impact-driven learning programs. So we just launched that last week. We're really excited for that, to roll that out. And what we're also doing is we are rolling out a number of new pieces of functionality and products that really support that new methodology. So some of the themes that we're looking at, I talked to a little bit earlier, but around personalization, automation, and data, and just generally figuring out ways to make learning more engaging by bringing it closer to the learner, bringing it closer to where the learner is, kind of in their natural rhythm of their workday, and making it extremely engaging for them and enjoyable and for them to use. So they want to use it, and so they can really thrive in their work. So between our method, between our roadmap for our product, I just couldn't be more excited for the things that our great team is doing.
Well, I speak for everybody watching today. I think we're really equally as excited, because anytime you hear the words fun and education together, it's something truly to look forward to and something truly to adopt. So thank you so much, Steve. We really appreciate you stopping by today, and you are always welcome back. So we hope to see you again soon.
Hey, thanks a lot. Really, really appreciate the time. What a fun chat, and have a great day. All right.
Absolutely. Likewise. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Until next time.